Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about media technology selection, and this is for Module 5 of ELRC 7503. And we see this quote from A.W. Bates in From Teaching in a Digital Age, that media differ in the extent to which they can represent different kinds of content. And the reason that it differs is because they vary in symbol systems. So things like text, sound, still pictures, moving images, all of that requires the cognitive and mental integration and adding to of content acquired throughout these different media and symbol systems. And for this reason, we have to have this deeper knowledge and understanding and even processing of a concept or an idea. And that is often the result of the integration of content from a variety of media sources. It doesn't just come from one, usually. And we have to also take into play the ability to handle concrete versus abstract knowledge. Does the media that we're using to present the information lend itself to more concrete or abstract concepts? And is it helping with that? On that same note, though, when we're choosing media for technology selection, you have to think about the media affordances. So, what is helpful about this media? What do we know about this media? But then also, what are its downsides? What are the things that are not as helpful when we choose that media that help us be successful? And one of the first things we're going to look at is learning management systems. And most of us in our undergrad have dealt with Canvas or Blackboard or Moodle of some sort to do some sort of virtual learning or have assignments that take place both in class and outside of class. And on top of that, now we use Moodle for our learning as well. And typically, these learning management systems are a way to provide an instructor with a platform to create and deliver content, monitor student participation and enrollment, and then also assess student performance with means to have things like rubrics and resources available as well. But it also gives students the ability to use interactive features such as video conferencing, threads and discussion forums. All of those things ties into this learning management system. So you may be wondering, well, what is the affordances of a learning management system? Personally, I feel like the learning management system is like the foundation of the house when it comes to media technology selection. It does not have to just be used on its own. It can be integrated with other media as well, but also does well standing alone when it needs to. I think that is the benefit of the LMS as a media technology selection. And with that, we have social media. And I feel like social media is the area that we often see a lot of pushback in educators, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube. We hear a lot of the negatives, but we are sometimes quick to not look at the positives. And some of the positives are effective communication. Whether we like it or not, social media is a great way to communicate with others, whether it is your neighbor next door or someone 10 states away. So the social media aspect can be used to your advantage in media and delivering media. It also allows for networking, goes along with, communicating with your neighbor. If you are in a class that happens to be studying abroad, well, you still have that networking ability afterwards to network with the people from the study abroad program to the people in person with you in class remaining. But it also gives you that global exposure. We no longer have to rely on local newspapers and television stations to deliver information to us. We can hear this information for all over the world with a click of a button. With social media, too, we see these companies that have come into fruition that have processed the negative of social media and put it into or derived it to positive ways, such as Edpuzzle. So you see Edpuzzle a lot of times with YouTube videos You'll take a tutorial, say for a math video, and then now you can integrate these interactive questions and quizzes that tie into your learning management system and feed into the grades for teachers. So there are positive affordances with social media as well. And then we go to immersive technology or augmented reality or virtual reality. And this is one that I don't have as much exposure to pre-COVID. During COVID, though, I feel like immersive technology was really a huge piece that was available to students, or at least in my area. And not necessarily with the glasses you see here, but with easier ways to give students a virtual reality type experiment. So, for example, with the immersive technology, it focuses more on the experience of learning rather than if the student's answers are correct. So that is a downside, but it does give you a realistic and simulating environment, and that helps for growth. So one of the examples I've seen was with museums and being able to go to different places that usually some students may not be able to afford to go to. So in my community, my school is a Title I school. We are 96% low economic and socially disadvantaged there. Most of my kids have not been out of the city that we live in. That is the harsh reality of, working in a low-income area. But with virtual reality and augmented reality, my students are able to go to things like the Sistine Chapel and look at the paintings, not necessarily in person, but as close to in person as they're going to get. And same with the Museum of Modern Art. We were able to go in and look at the art pieces as if we were actually there. We were able to talk about them, to dissect the different pieces of the art. It was a great way to give them the experience of the learning without actually having to be there, and the money and the resources and time it takes to go on a trip like that we can't always afford in a low-income school. And this immersive technology and learning is a learning approach that's a little different because it integrates the technology with traditional methods of education. So those framework, those foundations of the traditional methods are still there, but the simulating environment for growth is really what gets me, because we don't always have that advantage in lower income schools to go to all these places and experience these things to build the background knowledge they need to understand higher order text or realistic and nonfiction articles that they need to be successful and understand the content. So with all of these things that we've looked at for media, learning management systems, social media, immersive technology, one of the things we have to look at to make sure that we are choosing the right media for our lesson or even for a course if we're creating one is using this sections model from the A.W. Bates Teaching in a Digital Age. And section stands for students, ease of use, costs, teaching functions, interaction, organizational issues, networking, security, and privacy. So all of these pieces are all what needs to be thought of when we are choosing media. What are the demographics of your students? Who are your students, and what are you trying to reach? Do they have access to technology, and what are their learning styles? One of the hardest things I feel like when we're using digital learning is student learning styles. If a student is a kinesthetic learner, how are they going to be able to meet those needs of being a kinesthetic learner when they're online? And that's just one example, but we have to think of those things when we're choosing our media technology. And then the ease of use. Is the technology that we're using and media that we're using reliable and easy to use and easy to navigate for the learner? Oh, and for the instructor, because on the instructor side, you don't want to spend hours upon hours upon hours on a program that or media that is not all in all user-friendly for you and not a wise use of your time. So you have to think of the ease of use, but not only for the learner, but for the instructor as well. And then cost. Unfortunately, money comes down to a huge piece of this, but how much does the technology cost to design, deliver, and maintain the course? So do you have to pay a fee, such as with your learning management systems, to use it? Or is it something that's free? It's a freemium prescription? Or is it a subscription type program? Do you have to pay a monthly fee for that? And, if that's something you're asking of your students to do, that could be play here. And then teaching functions. We've talked about these educational affordances. How is it beneficial or not beneficial for teaching? So with social media, one of the downsides could be cyberbullying. That could be a huge issue that high school teachers run into when using social media such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all of those in the educational setting. And then interaction. What extent does the medium provide interactivity? Are we able to have students and instructors interact with each other almost as if they're interacting in person? And then organizational issues. Does the institution support this technology? So does the company, organization, school that you are creating this course and media for, does it support this technology? Does it have the resources to back up the technology you're trying to use and media you're trying to use? And then networking. I feel like this ties in with interaction, but does it provide for opportunities to network outside of the course with experts and others in the community? So we always hear the saying, it's not who you know, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So are you able to get to know more people outside of just the course? And then security and privacy. Man, I don't know about you guys, but cyber hacking and things like that are a huge issue. And so we want to make sure that we're keeping our users, both instructors and students, safe. We don't want to potentially expose them to any harms or risks there. So with all of that, these are some of the works cited that I use to help come up with my information here and my affordances about media technology selection. All in all of the pieces together, I truly think that when you're selecting this media, you have to think of individual cases. It's not something that you can blanket say, oh, well, learning management systems are best, or social media is best, or immersive technology is best. It is going to be a case-by-case basis, and sometimes it's not one of those medias on its own. Sometimes it is a threaded tool of all of these together in a purposeful way, and that's going to be the key there is it purposeful? Thank you for watching.